Well, new signs of a recession in agriculture hit this week with even more layoffs. As we first reported in news, ADM is cutting 700 jobs and Syngenta had restructuring, eliminating field sales jobs across the Midwest. And even though USDA is forecasting net farm income to jump nearly 30% this year, farmers and ag lenders fear this year could be worse than last. That's this week's Farm Journal report. The wheels are already in motion this spring for this Iowa farmer.
We're putting on fertilizer, we're doing a little light tillage, ammonia, phosphorus, potash, and getting fields ready. Be a few weeks before we put seed in the ground.
Dry conditions this winter are lending to the ability for Ben Rinchie to get in the field a little early. A hopeful start to what could be another challenging year.
She is dry.
Well, locally, it's been dry, so we need to catch up, but a dry spring is usually a blessing, just as long as we catch up later. But I think more on the mind of farmers is finance. We've had a couple years of drawdown on farmers' working capital. Prices are probably slightly below most farmers' cash flow level of production. $4.50 corn in this neighborhood, which we think is a gift compared to harvest time last year, still doesn't quite reward unless you've got a tremendous amount of equity in your land or machinery.
Creighton puts out the Rural Main Street Index, and 2/3 of ag bankers think that 2025 is going to be worse than 2024. As you said, and you're penciling things out today, do you think that's the case here in this part of Iowa?
If we stay on the current course, I think that's exactly true. I think grain farmers will have another year of drawing down working capital.
Input costs are still a pain point, with some inputs even elevated from last year.
They haven't come down much. Fertilizers even made a little attempt to go up. I wish there was a little more competition in that space. Machinery, oh my gosh, the inflation in machinery, I feel like, well, a lot of analysts say we're up 1/3 over the past 5 years, but it really feels like 50% by the time you look at repairs. Oh, and the repairs on these newer diesel engines with the emission systems on, just so costly. It's half of our, engine repair costs now.
Tim Homan is a relationship manager for Rabobank, working with larger operations across central and eastern Iowa. So then are you more concerned about this year or implications for next year?
Well, I think we always got to be worried about this year, just because there are a lot of unknowns yet. It gets a little more nerve-wracking once that safety net on your balance sheet falls off.
Eroding balance sheets are a concern being echoed not only by ag lenders, but also ag economists across the U.S. According to Farm Journal's latest Ag Economists Monthly Monitor, 62% of ag economists think the row crop side of agriculture is already in a recession. And 85% of those surveyed think it will accelerate consolidation not only on farms, but also agribusinesses.
The end of the year last year was rough, but looking at projected cash flows for 25, we see that looking even worse. Unrealized, of course, but definitely looks like it could be a challenge.
With a third year of low corn and soybean prices penciled in for current projections, the one thing that saved some of the farmers in this area last year was the fact they were able to out-yield the price.
If things hold together this year yet and farmers take advantage of opportunity, yields are decent, things could still be okay this year. Next year's a total unknown. You got the extra question this year of tariffs and its impact.
Last week we were in Canada, and for every single farmer I talked to, their biggest concern right now is trade. That is their biggest concern. But you would say that's not your biggest concern?
I think we're in the good negotiation phase. For those of us who've dickered on a new tractor or, wrestled with an input supplier to get the fertilizer at the right price, we're just making offers right now. And so much of this, especially with our Canadian neighbors, is about making trade equal, countervailing, so that the tariffs that we ask for our products equal theirs.
So you're in the camp that short-term pain for long-term gain?
Absolutely.
Not all farmers agree. Farm Journal conducted a recent poll of farmers and ranchers asking the question, do you support President Donald Trump's use of tariffs as a negotiation strategy? Out of the nearly 3,000 that responded, 54% said no and 41% responded yes. The poll then followed up by asking, do you believe USDA will compensate farmers for losses if agriculture is affected by a trade war? Those responses were more mixed, with 36% saying no and 34% responding yes. And when ag economists were asked if they think President Trump's strategy of using tariffs as a negotiating tool will benefit U.S. agriculture in the long run, 92% said no.
If you dig into some of the comments that were made, I noticed one that said you might win, but the risks are really huge. Another comment was, what's their end result? Do they end up reducing trade barriers or do they end up adding to the trade barriers? So, I think that ultimately one of the big deals when I think about longer term impacts is, even if this is short lived and we could say there's some benefits coming out of it, sometimes you have relational damage with trade partners that is really hard to restore.
For farmers like Rishi, the record ag trade deficit is something that needs to be addressed, and he's hopeful getting tough on trade will do just that.
Well, we're going to go through an adjustment period. We're going to make things a little less than comfortable for a while here while we make our trade partners be fair trading partners. It could be hard in the short term on farmers, and I think what I saw out of the USDA staff is in the White House is they're very cognizant of that. And I think that they need to have methods and ways to keep us whole for a very short term as we go through the adjustment period. The linkage won't be perfect. It never will. I have great confidence that if they keep farmers whole through the adjustment period, we're going to have a wonderful food production system.
Rishi has some big ideas. He actually was part of a group of farmers that met with Ag Secretary Rollins during Top Producer Summit this year. That meeting led to another meeting with Rollins' team just last week. Ben's big idea, it's to shake up crop insurance, creating a crop insurance savings account similar to a HSA. And you can hear that entire conversation exclusively on the Farm Journal TV app. Well, a Black Sea grain deal is in the works. Could it bode better for Russia or Ukraine? A glimpse of ag around the globe happens in just 2 minutes.